I am Matt Keddy, and this week I'm also a marketing zombie because we've been going pretty hard. This was going to be one project, and it turned into three, so you got two bonus projects. But this sweet pumpkin is what we're going to show you how we made. The first step is sealing your punky or rotted wood. So for this instance, we wanted to use a really crappy piece of wood, which is gummy cherry that was rotted and sat outside, and we ran it through the planer. Clean up the live edge a little bit with a flat brush. Make sure you get all the dust and particles out of there. You don't want those floating around. And you get some penetrating epoxy. Now, we did thin the penetrating epoxy right there with denatured alcohol, so we did about 40%. You mix that guy up, and it basically, when you thin it out that much, you can go up to 50%, but when you thin it, it becomes like water. And that'll really wick into the wood. Originally, when we did this project, and the other thing too, I almost forgot. So make sure you put a little bit on the back, especially on something this thin, because as that wicks in, it takes on moisture, and then the wood wants to move. So if you wet out both sides, you can always clean up the backside. You're gonna have weird drips on it, but that kind of helps things. So long story short, I did that initial recording and was like, whoa, that was really cool. I should record that again. So I got another piece of gummy cherry, and then I did this time lapse where you can see now this is like 30 minutes of the epoxy just kind of wicking into it. Slows down a little bit towards the end as it starts to saturate, but once you get all that epoxy soaked into that rotted wood, you can scuff it up. I didn't get too crazy with the back, just knock down the high spots. Those are those drips I was talking about. Because we're going to encapsulate this in epoxy, then mill it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So next step, fumble around, make yourself a mold. With that that miter sled there, there's a stop, so each, just makes life easier if you're wondering why I was tinkering with that. And then just using 3M Stucco Tape. You can get it at Home Depot. It's about $10 and it's in the paint section. You can line the outside of your mold. And then I'm kind of going up and down with that step bit. It's drilling a pilot hole as well as a countersunk hole. And the reason I was pulling it back and forth, that MDF will actually kind of crack and separate if you put that big of a drill bit through. So just pulling it out, remove the dust, attach it to your mold, apply some silicone, and then this little trowel, it's about $7 at Home Depot. It makes all the difference in the world. So keep in mind, anytime you have silicone on the outside of the mold, it's going to leave a line, but you just cut that off whenever you're done. Wipe everything down with denatured alcohol, and you're ready to start mixing up some flag. So the reason I chose flag, it sets up fairly quick, about 20 minutes working time, and then you can apply another layer. I ended up pouring this entire project and then letting it, 6 hours later, I was able to mill it. And then for colors, we just added mica powder. I think we got them from justpigments.com. Looks kind of like a pumpkin. Kinda. Added some copper. I think that was called copper. I have to look at the colors. I don't really know. This is something we probably should have had in front of us, but yeah, added the color and then swirled it around. I was like, oh, that looks really cool. Let's add some alcohol. Let's see what alcohol does to it. Yeah, it ruined it, right? Totally ruined it. So it looked cool there for a second, but as you can see, it whips out. So I posted that on social media a couple days ago, and it did horrible. No one liked it. I think somebody probably thought in the back of their head it was hideous, so we decided to make a third one. And that's just tabletop. What I'm doing there is waiting for it to get to 80 degrees and just let it warm up in the cup. And then the bubbles rise to the surface. It's easier to work with, and the alcohol ink makes a big difference when the viscosity is lower like that from the heat. So just added a little bit of orange Pinata ink, and then the white is just the Jacaurd Pinata white. That right there is just clear that I'm drizzling on top to push down the ink. So as you see, I'm not manipulating, doing anything. I just put the colors on, let the clear push it down, and you're ready to go. So as that guy was setting up, I was demolding this guy, and got a little hot too because I went pretty heavy with that flag, but no harm, no foul. Double-sided tape, probably not the best way to do this, but that double-sided tape's almost impossible to get off there. So you clamp down your surface, and that's just a makeshift router sled. We don't actually have a fully equipped shop yet here in Nashville, so you got to make do. Sand that up a little bit, knock down any of the high spots, clean off your adhesive, and that guy then gets washed down with some denatured alcohol. You take a picture of it, put it on social media, and no one likes it. So you made that guy. Yeah, I'm not bitter. I promise, I'm not bitter. All right, so let's pop this guy off. That's just, and as you remember, the wood kind of stuck up pretty high, so we got to flatten that down, make this one big smooth surface. And the same thing, router sled, I had to raise it up a little bit because that piece was so high. But once we get that side flattened, flip it over, make sure the other side's pretty flat, and we're ready to rock. And the dust, make sure you got a dust mask on and you have pretty good dust collection. And this isn't real time. That's actually just how fast I can trace. Most people don't know that. Most people don't know that at all. So we're going to cut this out with a scroll saw, and we have to add entry holes so that we can insert the scroll saw bit. And that's just a foam backer that came in a package. And then the fun part, the Ryobi 16-inch scroll saw from 2014 that survived 2 moves, has taken a savage beating. Could clamp it down, as you can see it's walking, but I just muscled through it. Lost the thumb screw, had to get a little machine screw for that, but here's the bit changing, and I'm using the Olsen PGT precision ground teeth, and then they're double reverse blades, and the double reverse blades cut on the upstroke as well as the downstroke, so when you're cutting out epoxy or wood, it doesn't give you that rough cut, but it does want to pull up because the upstroke's pulling the piece up as the downstroke is pulling the piece down, so it bounces around a lot more. It's a little more challenging to control, but you can get through it. Fun fact about scroll sawing, there isn't a fun fact about scroll sawing. I'm not a fan. There's a ton of great scrollers out there, but not for me. So the 1/4-inch round over bit, white side, I think it's 1982, small pilot bearing, so it fits in the little cracks. Just round over all the edges of your pumpkins, and it kind of just gives a little more of a 3-dimensional look. I didn't clamp that big notch on the nose. I didn't clamp the router case properly, like the sleeve to hold the height adjustment. So it ended up plunging pretty far into that nose, but you can fix it just by sanding. And we're going to do a quick top coat of flag because we're crunched for time. So at this point it's Wednesday. The blog post is due Thursday afternoon. It has to publish Friday. So flag sets up a lot faster than Tabletop or Art Pro. Just put a thin coat on. It's pretty low viscosity, so it self-levels pretty nice and easy. Just make sure you have full uniform coverage. Ideally, if you were going to do this, you would want to seal coat with your final flood coat would be Art Pro or Tabletop. It's going to have a much nicer finish. But in a pinch, you can use flag. Sand down all your drips, or you could have taped it. Hindsight, I wish I would have taped it. All right, and the last step is to add a little bit of wax. So flag has a little bit of a different feel to it. I like the way that flag feels with some clear finishing wax. I got that from Old Barn Milk Paint. I'm not sure if they're still around, but it's one of the most liberally perfumed waxes that I've ever used. My hands smell amazing now. But it's just beeswax with probably a little bit of mineral oil, something like that, as an emulsifier. But you wipe it on, just wipe it back off. You got to buff it pretty well, almost burnish it. And you end up with some Rockstar pumpkins. Even though no one liked the other two, you still get some cool pumpkins. And the alcohol ink one, it's actually really funny. So in 2019, I went out to Minnesota for the first time with Moss, and we had a maker meetup, and Kelsey Gonzalez of Love Kelsey Ray, she was there, And she was showing off some of these coasters that she had created, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, how is this possible? Like, what is taking place here? And she's like, it's upside down. And I was like, oh. So rather than flipping it over to see what the top down would have been when you poured it, I just rotated it in my hand as if I had like the horizontal orientation off. And I did not understand alcohol ink at all. She explained it to me. So, fun story. Slid that in there to waste some of your time. Get this guy up over 10 minutes. Gotcha. Just kidding. So, if you guys have any questions, any comments, if you make one of these, please tag us in it. You know, post it on Instagram. Use hashtag Moss Epoxies. We would love that very much. And as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in, checking out these projects. What's Kelly always say? Happy crafting. Happy crafting. We'll see you guys later.